Joining me today is a wonderful guest, Antoine Gilgal, who spent her early years in Africa and South America, where her father worked as a journalist and diplomat. And this has allowed her and taken her to travel all over the world exploring diverse cultures and civilizations. Studying in Paris at university, she studied Sanskrit, Latin, and ancient Greek, and she speaks modern Egyptian, Spanish, Italian, and French. And she is distinguished in her ability to translate ancient text. Today, we're going to be talking about her theory regarding the pyramid culture and a whole bunch of really wonderful other topics. And I'm very excited to have her on today, and I hope you will join me for this hour. Welcome, Antoine. Thank you for joining us all the way from Paris.
Nice to hear you, Hilary. And thank you for the nice introduction.
Well, I have so many things to ask you. So we're going to jump right in because we have a lot of material to cover, and I think my listeners are going to be sitting on the edge of their seats for this next hour, listening to all the fabulous and wonderfully new information that you have brought to the world of ancient Egypt. So let's start by, just telling everybody listening, what is your theory? What is your theory in regards to ancient Egypt, and what makes it different from the rest of the world of Egyptology?
Well, that is a very, very wide question because I have a complete different theory. Well, my work in Egypt started 20 years ago. So I have been investigating archaeological facts and sites all around Egypt for 20 years now. So my experience on the terrain is quite different, because the professional on the terrain, I mean the archaeologists, there are only 2 months by year on the terrain. And they are on the same spot all the time, all their life long. So sometimes they don't know other places in Egypt. And I could go everywhere in Egypt, and I could see all the sites public can't see. So I have an image of ancient Egypt very different. So, my theory, well, I have many theories because you have many topics in ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's start with one of I've been to Egypt a few times, and I have been to some of the places that you discuss on your website, gigalresearch.com. That's GIGAL for everybody listening. If you'd like to get on our website and follow along, you have a really wonderful article on here that is really what made me interested in bringing you on the show as a guest, that talks about the elongated skulls that were found. And I know you have also traveled extensively around the world to other areas, that the pyramids in China, the pyramids in Malta, and you have really put together an incredibly beautiful thread of information that ties this culture together. And I'm curious what your personal belief is about these authentic skulls that were found, with these elongated skulls that were proven not to have been manipulated after birth like most people think. What's your thoughts on this?
Yes, this is a very important question because with that you can see that an antediluvian global civilization existed before. So I have to explain a little things for the public. First, the most interesting things was found by the Professor Walter Emery, who is an excellent archaeologist. He died a few years ago in the 70s, but he found very strange skeletons with very large dolichocephalic skulls. You said large skulls. For him, it was the Shamsu Hor, the so-called followers of Horus. He found that they were mostly high priests and that they could have come from a civilization prior to the flood, an antediluvian civilization. And this is a professor of university, very well known, and the author of Archaic Egypt. You have the same skulls in Peru. And when I'm talking about those skulls, I'm not speaking about elongated skulls during childhood. I am speaking about true genetic ones, and experts like Dr. Van Tschudi in Peru think that they are from an antediluvian genetic group, and researchers as Posnansky, Veril, are saying that the pre-Inca town in Peru, which is Tiwanaku, is dating from the same timeline than pre-dynastic Egypt. So you can have a serious connection between the Tiwanaku Peruvian skulls and the skulls found by Walter Emery in Egypt. So there is an absolute certainty about the existence of an antediluvian breed race all around the world with that kind of skulls. And there is a consensus blindness about those very serious findings. You have the same skulls. You have about 700 of those skulls in the island of Malta. The doctor Antoine Mesford and Ventura found them. And when you know that the ancient name of Malta is Melita, which means honey, and that the symbol of Malta is a bee, then you have to remember that the symbol of Pharaoh in Egypt is also a bee. And one of his titles is Nesubiti, he of the bees, the one of the permanent and non-permanent kingdom. Mel was one of the names for the pyramids. So there is a very, very important connection there. So in my own research, I found that there were a migration from Egypt to Malta and also in Crete of this cast of dolichocephalus skulls. But where I am different, it is that for me, they are not the Shemsuhor, because the oral tradition in Egypt, still alive in Egypt, is saying that the word Shemsuhor means in very ancient Egyptian the advanced man, the higher principle of man. And the word Septepi, translated by Boval and Hancock as first times, is translated by them and also by me and also by the English Egyptologist Raimo as when the gods were manifesting themselves inside humans. So you can see there how a wrong translation can change completely the text on the meaning of the things.
So you've been able to go into these concepts and translate them in your mind correctly, and yes. So you believe that there has been a disinformational, whether intentional or not, it's just a mistaken translation that has created the world of Egyptology today?
Well, I think a good translation is very difficult. You have to read hundreds of texts. You have to know other ancient languages like ancient Grecian, other languages in Mediterranean, around the Mediterranean Sea, to be able to translate correctly things. It's not enough to know the language. You have to have a very wide culture to be able to translate correctly. So I don't think it is intentional. I think it's only a wrong translation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so do you feel that the what seems to have been at one time on this planet a global pyramid culture, that these elongated skull people were in fact the ones who created that?
Well, it's difficult to know if it is the same group of people who built the pyramid all around the world, because you have very different kinds of pyramids. What we have in Egypt at the origin is the 42 tribes of the Shesh people at the origin mixing themselves after those ancestors, those mysterious large scale group from before the flood. So you have a difference before the flood and just after the flood. It's very, very, very incredible that all around the world we are able to find those large skulls, and you have only a few researchers working on it.
I think that's really amazing that we have, we don't see this in history books. We don't study this in school. Nobody is taught about this kind of human being, because, or whatever, whatever it is, we don't see it. Now, in your article, you say that, there is evidence of a fossilized fetus of 7 months with this shaped skull still in the womb of a mother from that time. So yeah. This was an actual genetic formation. This was not something, because in Peru they did tie baby skulls so that they would elongate. And I think that they were trying to, replicate either a genetic connection or in honor of whoever these people were. I think it's really fascinating that the crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, as we get into the dynasties of the pharaohs, replicated an elongated head. Do you feel that this was in honor of, or perhaps also claiming a genetic connection to this race?
I think maybe it was the last ones,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But one of the major aspects of this ancient global civilization is of course the building of different kinds of pyramids all around the world at different times, of course, but with the same aims. In fact, what I discovered with my team, because I founded an organization which is gizaforhumanity.org, the same aims is to say, to get astronomical observatories for the records of the position of the stars, for the sea traffic highways, but not only for that, the pyramids were built to calculate the precessions of the equinoxes, and a lot of knowledge is embedded in them, like a time capsule for us. And many more things. You have water pump pyramids, power plants pyramids, and they were used also as seismic taps, resonating and harmonizing with, basic earth frequencies, etc. But my main theory is that Giza is the result of the incredible sense of humanity of the very ancient Egyptians had, because, and this is my main theory, I think that the Giza Plateau was built to serve humanity under it during the big catastrophe of the Big Flood. And we know also, for example, to what extent ancient Egyptians knew great secrets and mastered advanced technologies. This fact raises many questions. We can even quite rightly imagine they wanted to convey to us answers that could be of much use for our future. And to rediscover ancient green technologies that can change the blueprints to our sustainable future. It's very important.
Yes, I think so. You think that this was left as a testament to the future generations to come then?
Exactly. And that's exactly what I discovered. And for example, I discovered around Fayum Lake, which is at 100 kilometers south of the Great Pyramid, the huge hydraulic systems around the lake, mainly in the southeast shore of the lake, but also in the north shore. So it is a sophisticated management of the territory, and before 3000 BC, immense docks made of stones running from Giza to the south, 80 kilometers long, until Ilahun Pyramid and Hawara Pyramid, where they just found 1 year ago immense docks and facilities for the boats. So it's huge management of the territory. I'm not sure we are able to do the same today.
Mm-hmm.
We're just coming up to break, so just for the webpage, you can go to capricornradio.com for the free archives and capricornmembers.com for the HD TV and MP3 archives. But for now, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a moment. There is something majestic in the land of Ireland. This is known the world over. The Celtic Irish are descendants of the Tuatha De Danann, a mysterious, supernatural race of gods written about in ancient Irish Gaelic texts. This is the basis for all Irish mythology, and our megalithic ancestors are interlinked with these peoples. You have a chance to come and see these monuments and temples for yourself. The megalithic landscape is rich in the realms of myth, legend and wisdom. Come see all this on the most spectacular Sacred Sites tour in March 2016. The Sacred Sites and Equinox tour is not to be missed. Tour highlights include Grillen of Ailloch Observatory, the Giant's Ring Henge and Dolmen, St. Patrick's Day Special at St. Patrick's Ancient Chair, March 17th, Knockmany Passage Tomb linked to the Queen Maeve with special access, Beemore Temple Complex, Dunluce Castle, the Giant's Causeway, Beltany Stone Circle, Kilclooney Dolmen, and the Loughcrew Equinox Event Alignment. Of course, we will see the famous tombs of Newgrange, Noath and Doath, also Fornox Rock Art and Shamanic Chamber, Tara Hill Complex, and we're going to finish at the Tuatha De Danann's origins in the northwest of Ireland at Carrowkeel, dated 3500 BC, and the famous Carrowmore 5000 BC complex. Check out all the full itinerary on the tours events page for more details at jamesswagger.com. Welcome back to Capricorn Radio. This is your host James, and don't forget to check out the archives at capricornmembers.com. You can subscribe for membership, doing a lifetime membership deal at the moment. And of course you can still check out the free archives at capricornradio.com. And then HDTV shows as well on the Capricorn members page. But for now...
Do you believe that at one point this entire area in Egypt that covers all of this land was once a tropical area? Or do you believe that it was always this kind of, weather and it was underwater at some point? What do you really feel is the true timeline of Egypt itself?
Yes, the area of the Giza Plateau was, of course, not a desert like now. Yeah, it was very different. It was full of forest and very green. It's completely different, yes.
Mm-hmm.
the timeline is, as I always say, is before and after the big flood. And you have a lot of different dates for that. You have a lot of researchers telling different dates. But we can say it was between 10,000 BC and 30,000 BC.
So let's talk about two of my favorite places that when I personally visited them, I have felt completely resonated and connected to these places. And that would be the Osirian and also the Valley Temple near the Sphinx. Do you believe that these two places predate the Pharaoh dynasties? And if so, could they be related to this race that we were talking about earlier? What are your thoughts on those two particular locations?
Yes, I'm sure. The two locations you said are very old. They are the oldest ones in Egypt. And they are, of course, connected with that race. I'm sure of that. Mm-hmm. Those places are completely amazing because the blocks of stones are so huge and perfectly built. It's incredible and very different from what you find besides. In Abydos, for the Osirian you was speaking about,
yeah,
you have the temple of Seti first, which is marvelous temple, but just beside you have this Osirian, and you can see that it's completely different building. And and you know, it is not finished to find such places. For example, we found 2 years ago a geologist, Egyptian geologist, and me, the second Sphinx site just in front of the first, the other side of the Nile River. We are actually writing the book, so I hope it will be ready for next year. And we found the existence of the second Sphinx thanks to texts written by geographer, by Egyptian geographer, Arabs geographer, for example, in 1099, and because in that time in Cairo, you had texts, you had a second Sphinx. He was there. He was just in front of the first one, and all the historians were writing about it. So if you are able to read ancient Arabic, you can find all the text about that. And it is very, very interesting. I found that confirmation also of the existence of the second Sphinx by the historian Musabihi, who writes in his annals about a Sphinx smaller than the other because deteriorated badly by the time on the other side of the Nile, and that it existed from a very, very long time also. So I think we are facing an ancient civilization with a lot of pyramids, but not only that, with a lot of sphinxes too. I'm sure where there is not only one or two sphinxes, there are others.
So do you believe that our entire perception of ancient Egypt is, perhaps partially correct, but a lot of it is still yet to be discovered?
Oh, yes. I think we just discovered 1% of what we have to discover.
Wow. Now, you speak at large, Antoine, about this underground subterranean network, and I would like to spend some time discussing that. Because I am familiar with a lot of these stories around the world. And what has been your discovery about the subterranean network underneath Egypt?
Yes. First of all, the Giza Plateau is literally honeycombed with underground tunnels. They are cut in different layers of bedrock under the surface. They are cut through solid bedrock with smooth walls, and you immediately realize that it was not carved with copper chisels, of course. You have also water channels under the surface of many places on the plateau, like in Abu Sius, Saqqara, for acoustic resonance with rocks and monuments, mainly for healing purposes. When you go on my tours, I show you the hundreds of entrances. But what is also astonishing is that you have an incredible subterranean network going to the south of Egypt. The entrance is from Mokattam Cliff, southeast of Cairo, where you have immense natural caves and tunnels worked by humans. I could see the beginning of those tunnels, very, very wide and large. One main branch is leading to the Red Sea and other one to the south. I know that the tunnel entrance is on the Giza Plateau also, leading to the south of Egypt, to Abydos, because for me you have two main entrances to reach, the Drat, because for me the subterranean world, the Drat, is said in ancient Egyptian, was real, was terrestrial, under the earth. One is on the Giza Plateau, and another one is near Abydos. Actually, behind Abydos is the mysterious Piga mountain. The people don't know that just behind Abydos, just behind the Seti temple, you have a mountain which name is Piga, and this mountain is known in the ancient texts to be a part of the Drat. And do you know that we have written in the sacred text, in fact in the second hour of the book of the so-called Book of the Dead, of course it's a wrong translation, in fact it's a book coming forth by day. We have in that text the exact measurements of the Drat. It is in fact 309 iteru long and 120 iteru large. It's about 3,180 kilometers long and 1,260 large. So for me, the Drat is a real existing place.
What was the purpose of this place? Did they live there? Was it a ceremonial? I mean, it just sounds like such a large undertaking, just like the pyramids on Giza. What was the purpose?
Yes, of course. That is the point. That is the point. Well, the purpose for me, it is to be protected. It is very huge underground facilities to be protected during huge, big floods. You have a very important document. It is a papyrus of Abu Hormuz, found recently and written in Coptic, then translated into Arabic in 1822. This document, which is a copy, it's a copy of older documents, explains that before a great flood, the king Saurid built the Great Pyramid in order to save the population under it. The existence of this king Saurid is attested by thousands of texts. For example, the great writer and historian Al-Muqtadi wrote about a great priest. His name was Sayuf, living in the time of a pharaoh when the big flood came. He was living inside and under the Great Pyramid, the Great Temple of the Stars. I'm quoting the text. Mm-hmm. So the Pharaoh learned by his 105 great priests and astronomers that a big catastrophe will submerge his country 3,000 years later. This pharaoh was from the pre-dynastic time. In the text, we can understand that it was before 4000 BC, anyway. And in Infu Temple, it is written that Giza was a center for the protection of all knowledge and sciences and populations during the flood. In the ancient Egyptian book, the Book of the Celestial Cow, you have a version of the big flood. A chapter title is History of the Destruction of Humanity. You have also in the Book of the Ritual, called also the Book of the Revelation, you get the story of a boat, an ark, saving the souls. It was the ark boat of the god Nu, which is very similar to Noah. And Nun, is called the Lord of the Flood in a Tutmosis III inscription in Luxor. And Nu was called them Num, and he became the god of the Nile, and his ark, which name is Tiba. Tiba is the name of today the city of Luxor. So you see there are a lot of things. You have the most important text is the chapter 64 of the so-called Book of the Dead. The chapter 64 is the more ancient of this book, which is a compilation of very different texts and spells unified only during the 18th dynasty. And this chapter is inside the pyramid text dating from the 5th dynasty, it is to say 2465 before Christ, but you have text from the 1st dynasty saying that this chapter 64 was already old during the 1st dynasty. And Sir Wallis Budge, the great English archaeologist, also said that the right title is coming forth by day from the subterranean world. And what we found in that chapter 64, we found the description of a catastrophe by a huge flood. It is said in that chapter also that when Osiris saw the water coming, he asked help from the Lord of the flood. So for me, the drought is a real subterranean network under Giza.
And well, I think it's really fascinating, this information that you're sharing, and I have a distinct interest in the 18th dynasty and Hatshepsut's rule. There seems to be a lot of myth and misunderstanding about her reign, and I'm curious if you have any comments on her specifically, how she ties into Luxor and her temples that are there too. Were they connected to the subterranean network?
Yes, I think behind the temple of Hatshepsut you have an entrance, very important entrance for the subterranean world. And, Hatshepsut, as other women, pharaoh, were very important in Egypt. Also because in ancient Egypt was predominantly throughout its history a matriarchal culture, because the power and property was being inherited from mother to daughter. So there is a tradition for the women in Egypt, in ancient Egypt, very, very important. And you have an archaeologist, Dr. Margaret Murray, in 1940, who is a very fantastic Egyptologist, and largely ignored. She had to suppress many of her ideas and discoveries from fear of ridicule from her male colleagues. And she wrote a lot about Hatshepsut and what she discovered. So it's very important, yes.
And this is something I have a personal interest in, but I thought you might have some insight considering your unique perspective on this ancient Egyptian world. And I'm curious what you know of the spiritual symbology of the blue lotus and how important that was in that time frame, and what that really may have meant. What's your own personal opinion?
Yes, well, it's very important because there also we have wrong translations. One of the most important and misunderstood symbol of the pharaonic kingship and spiritual concept is the symbol of the Sematawi. The Sematawi was represented carved on the throne of the pharaohs and in a lot of other places. It is a complex symbol, therefore quite misunderstood. The Sematawi represents the union of the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt. It is composed in the center by an axis, which is a representation of the hieroglyphic Nefer, which means perfect, perfection. This axis is coming out from an open heart. It is like the artery of the trachea. And noted around this axis, you have the two plants symbolizing Egypt, the lotus flower from the south with the papyrus of the north. Sema means to unify, and Tawi means the lands. So Sema Tawi is the ligature of the two lands, the union, the marriage of the north with the south. But not only that, those symbols are telling us other things. As I used to say, there were different levels of understanding used by priests, scribes, in writing their sacred symbols and texts. Different levels of understanding according to the level of wisdom achieved by the observer. For example, the papyrus, this plant is dedicated to the goddess Cobra Wadjet, who is protecting the north of Egypt, the delta. You know why the cobra was sacred in Egypt? The cobra was sacred because it was on the crown of the pharaoh, because the cobra used to stay his head upright towards the skies, towards the divine, and the other part of the body on earth indicating the telluric energy grid of the planet. So it is the image of a terrestrial being aspiring to the divine, pursuing the divine. So this is a symbol of the north of Egypt, somehow the symbol of all of us, ideally on earth, searching to approach the divine, searching to get the skies. Then you have the symbol of the south, the lotus flower. During the sunset, the beautiful blossom of the lotus, full of the light of the day, is closing and is going underwater, reaching quite the slit until the small hours. So it is like the divine principle coming down to earth. Then, next morning, the lotus is reaching the surface and the light again. So it is the divine principle.
So this was was this related to the concept of the soul in ancient Egypt then? The evolution of the soul?
Yes. But, for me, I just, finished for the Sematawi because it's very important. For me, the ancient pharaohs and priests devoted the north, Lower Egypt, to the terrestrial things, to the normal human life, to the material life, the tangible life. and they devoted the south of Egypt to the divine, to the invisible, to the non-tangible. For that, the cemetery was so important, because a symbol of a true agreement, a true contract, dedicating the earth of Egypt to the skies, to the divine. So this is a double agreement. This commitment is, for me, the most important thing we have to understand about Egypt. That is the meaning of the double kingdom, and much more than that, because everything in Egypt was supposed to be reflected in the other world, in the divine. When a pharaoh wants to build a new temple, he just draws a sacred rectangular on the ground, and it was said that the temple already then existed in the skies. Then he could continue the special rites for the building. Before really building it, it already existed in the other world, the skies. So, the binary principle in Egypt is therefore teaching us a lot of things. Double is a key word opening their knowledge. For that you have often depictions of a body with two heads, the head of Set and the head of Horus, invigorating the double kingdom. For that in the early dynasties you have two tombs for one person, one empty in the south at Abydos, and one true north at Saqqara. They also built double mounds as one temple. Everything important was done in double, because they were conscious all the time of their double, of their higher self. It is a principle of Ka, one of the 9 aspects of their soul resident in the skies and guiding them. So, all what wanted the very first pharaohs and proto-pharaohs, they wanted to preserve the life in its integrity and to reach the higher dimension with the right and harmonious way of life, which was a so important Ma'at principle. Ma'at principle means that which is straight, and Ma'at was connected to the entire existence of the universe and was not limited to ethics for human beings alone. So it's very, very important to understand all that.
Yes, I agree. For everybody listening, I'm talking to Antoine Gilgal. You can find out more about her very unique and new research at gilgalresearch.com or gizaforhumanity.org. Those links are on the radio homepage and also my website, hilaryraimo.com. Now, I'd like to ask you, because you feel that there has been a lot of disinformation spread about the humanitarian values of the first pharaohs of Egypt. And I know that you like to discuss what you feel are the real humanistic values of the Old Kingdom. I know you touched on it a little bit, explaining the spiritual symbolism of the lotus and what you explained. But do you feel that there's more in this topic that people need to understand?
Well, this disinformation comes from 3 sources. First source, very common, is people wanting to make, breaking news without quite nothing or with wrong things. Like, for example, in this moment, they are talking a lot about the illegal digs in Giza, which is completely stupid, because you can't do illegal digs in Giza. It's impossible. I'm there every day, and I know everybody in the Giza Plateau, and it's impossible. And of course there are secrets, but sometimes they are secrets because it is needed time to completely understand something, and the second source of disinformation is the disinformation spread by the classical so-called classical archaeology. I said so-called because, in fact, the first archaeologists, like Mariette, like Champollion, like others, were completely right. They knew that the datation of the sites was quite different. They were beginning to dig. They were not able to say this is from that time or whatever. So after that, you have sometimes, some people, intellectual dishonesty, and that is, very, very spread. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I understand what you're saying, that I think anybody who has an interest in Egypt understands that there is a lot of information to dig through. Do you feel that perhaps the culture itself is so protective of the lines that connect the ruins to the Egyptian people, instead of going beyond to maybe other races having to been involved with the building of temples and because sometimes, I have to be honest with you, I feel that there is an ownership in countries that discover these kinds of pyramids, and they really don't want to talk about who really built them or go, with the obvious, the obvious research, because they don't want to lose the money that's associated with the tourism. And it's a sense of pride, in a sense, for many of them, which I understand. But do you think we get to a line where we have to move beyond that and really look at perhaps there really was this global culture that belongs to all of us?
Yes, of course, you are completely right. I think there is, of course, it's a problem because, in fact, the foreigners in Egypt from a long time, Egyptologists, etc., were not very, honest. I mean, it was like an ego thing to find things, etc., and also money, So the Egyptian people, they feel like they are stealing their things, their identity, their culture. I can understand that. But at the same time, as you said, it is the heritage of all of us. So they have problems to understand that. Mm-hmm. You imagine it's normal. They are in their own country and they see all those foreigners from many years coming from everywhere and saying things about their country. So it's very, I think, because I'm very linked to Egyptologists, not the one who are in the TV all the time. The true ones, I think the true Egyptologists and archaeologists, Egyptian ones who are working a wonderful work, who are finding things, incredible things, but they are not on the medias. And those people is a wonderful people and they understand everything. And, but they deserve to be, promoted to be more, in the press, in the medias. And, but maybe I have also to speak about, the oral tradition, because you have people from the oral tradition. And in fact, my first contact with that oral tradition was 5 or 6 years after my first stay in Egypt. And in that time, I went many times in the temples of South Egypt without realizing that a few special people were watching me and recording everything I was doing, all my behavior when I was visiting sacred places and monuments. And after a few years, those people contacted me. And and I realized that a few of them, those local tradition keepers, few of them were part of a mysterious web all around the country, and that they were informed in time of all my moving and traveling. For example, that I have been in a temple for 45 minutes, and what I said, with who I was speaking with, what kind of clothes I was wearing.
You're kidding. You're kidding.
No,
they've been following you when you go to these temples and what?
Not following me, but watching when I was entering in a sacred place.
Why do you think?
And one day, I was in the chambers behind the heart of Itfu temple, in one of the little chambers completely carved with, wonderful hieroglyphics. And I was trying to taste the sound in such place with my voice, and they came to me and they began to explain to me things of the past, and it never stops. It is still continuing to this day, and they know everything about life, death, the universe. And when I asked them, but why do you want to teach me? Why did you choose me? And they said, because you are a woman, and because from now we only want to teach women. You imagine, Hilary?
Well, I have an opinion about that. I really, really appreciate you sharing that, because it brings me back to my interest in the 18th dynasty and Hatshepsut and the mother-to-daughter tradition and the divine feminine consciousness that I really think was a big part of the early world. I mean, it's everywhere in all the cultures, and it's so not talked about. And I think that is really, really key to understanding our connection to the earth and to the underworld and to the cosmos, because it's not about a man versus woman thing. A lot of people ask me that, but I think it's about a sense of consciousness, and it's part of that connection. So I think it's a wonderful story that you've shared, that they share with you because you're a woman, and the spiritual aspect of what this means, and that they're still aware of it because of the oral tradition that still lives. Now, you spend a lot of time in Sinai also, too. What is your personal feeling of that area of Egypt?
Where are you saying? In Sinai?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is a very, very interesting area, but as all Egypt, that's a problem. Every piece of this earth is so incredible. Sinai is very interesting because it was the center of the Hathor culture. So, it is very interesting because it is connected with, I'm searching the Esmeralda, you said? The stone, the green stone. I don't remember the name in English. Anyway.
Yeah.
It is a stone of Hathor. And, it's a very important place, of course. And, by the way, I could enter for the first time from its discovery the Hathor temple at Memphis. It was very exciting. 1 month ago, I was there, and from its discovery in 1970, nobody had entered the site, and I could enter in it. And it is an incredible temple. And when I went inside this temple with great emotion, because this temple is completely dedicated to the goddess Hathor, archaeologists think that this temple is a small one, a kind of shrine, but in fact it's a very huge one. I discovered that this temple is not small. It is a rectangular, more than 50 meters long, and I discovered that, in fact, it was an island, a built island, because you still can see the canals surrounding the rectangular-shaped temple. And Hathor is the lady of the sycamore tree. The healing tree, the sycamore tree is a healing tree. In Egyptian, it is Nehat. Nehat in hieroglyphic is written with a tree, with a bird, with a sign of water, and the sign of a shelter. So it is, you can see always today a sycamore tree on the northwest corner of this temple, and it is the representation of a sacred island, a sacred mount, and the perfect shelter for humans, again, during the floods of the Nile. And I was very, very amazed and surprised, because nobody saw that before. I could see from where the water is coming, etc. But to make you understand why the Egyptians had different levels of understanding. The sycamore tree was known as a healing tree, and then later he was the name of this tree was the fig of Pharaoh. But the sycamore tree is a symbol of Hathor. It is a symbol of receptivity, nourishment, but principally life, because it was a tree of life. And do you know that sycamore tree is one of the most life-giving oxygen tree? Because a single fully grown sycamore tree can transform 26 pounds of carbon dioxide into life-giving oxygen every year. So I think the ancient Egyptians knew that this tree was given a lot of oxygen, a lot more than the other tree. For that, it was the tree of the life, the tree of the life. You understand? It's
incredible. Well, I feel that we have only about 5 minutes left, and I really feel that you have so much incredible information to share, and you are a true sister of my heart, because as I look through your website and I see you've traveled to Mexico, and really I feel like we've been walking in each other's footsteps, because I have done the same. And I want to ask you, Antoine, in the last few minutes of the show, how has your own personal spiritual path evolved because of your work?
Oh, it have evolved a lot, as you can imagine. But the problem is it is never stopping. I don't know where I will arrive, We are all the time learning and learning and learning. And more we learn, more we have to learn.
What do you feel is the message? What do you feel is the message that you bring to the world because of your work? If everybody listening right now, what would you share with them as your message?
Well, my most important message is that human beings are the most important thing, not only in this planet, but in the cosmos. And you have to be very, the emotions of human are very important. We have to keep that. We don't have to become cold, and we have to take care of each other. It's very important. That's the most important message. And that's a message of the ancient Egyptian too.
Antoine, Gilgal, everybody, you can find her information once again at her websites, GilgalResearch.com, GizaForHumanity.org. She has lots of wonderful events and articles coming up and available on her website.